We often think that when a man is falling in love, he'll just come right out and say it. But the truth is, many times he doesn't. He won't announce it, he won't label it, and he might not even fully understand it himself. Instead, his feelings slip out in the little things he does, the subtle ways he shows up, and the quiet signals he probably doesn't even realize he's giving. If you know how to spot them, you can see his heart long before his words ever catch up. When a man desires you emotionally, one of the most powerful signs is not found in what he says, but in what he does. Words can be sweet, words can be flattering, and words can even be deceptive at times. But consistency, the kind that shows up day after day, is much harder to fake. It's the repeated actions, the little gestures, and the way he keeps showing up for you even when it is not convenient, that reveal the depth of his emotional pull toward you. A man who desires you on an emotional level doesn't just appear when it's easy, when it's fun, or when it suits his schedule. He finds ways to be present even when life is chaotic. He invests his time, his focus, and his energy because his heart is quietly tied to you in a way that words alone could never capture. Think about it. Anyone can send a charming message at midnight or whisper something sweet when the mood is right, but not everyone is willing to follow up the next day, and the day after that, with the same care and presence. A man who is emotionally invested doesn't leave you guessing. He gives you a steady rhythm of attention. It might not always be grand or dramatic, but you notice the pattern. He checks in to see how you are doing, not just when he wants something, but because he genuinely wants to know. He remembers details you casually mentioned and circles back to them later, showing you that your words matter. This isn't about perfection or about him being available at every moment. It's about reliability. His behavior creates a sense of security because it shows he is building something beyond the surface. Consistency is also revealed in how he handles challenges. When life throws obstacles at him, long work days, stress, responsibilities, he doesn't let those things erase you from his priorities. He might not always have hours to spend, but he makes sure you know he's still there. Even a short call, a quick message, or a thoughtful gesture signals that he is holding space for you in his life. That is the difference between someone who is simply attracted to you in the moment and someone who is emotionally drawn to you. Desire without emotional depth fades when things get tough. But when a man shows consistency, it's a reflection of his deeper desire to connect, to stay close, and to nurture something lasting. There is another layer to consistency that often goes unnoticed. It is the way he aligns his words with his actions. Many people can say the right things, but when you observe him, you realize he means them because he follows through. If he tells you he will call, he calls. If he makes plans, he shows up. If he can't make it, he doesn't disappear or make excuses. He communicates honestly and makes the effort to reschedule. These are small but powerful signs that he values you and respects your place in his life. Emotional desire is not about intensity in a single moment. It is about the persistence of effort over time. Consistency also builds trust. You begin to feel safe because you don't have to question his intentions. When you sense that steadiness in his actions, you recognize that his attraction is not fleeting, it is growing roots. This reliability creates a foundation where deeper intimacy can flourish. Without saying the words, his consistency is his confession. It tells you he is falling, that you matter, and that he is quietly choosing you again and again, not just when it's easy, but especially when it requires effort. And that, more than anything he could ever say, is one of the clearest signs of emotional desire. When a man begins to desire you emotionally, one of the clearest signs is the appearance of his protective instincts. This doesn't mean he suddenly becomes controlling, nor does it mean he tries to take over your life or decisions. True protection, when it comes from an emotional place, is expressed in subtle, caring ways that reveal how much he values your well-being. It often shows up in the smallest gestures, the little questions and the thoughtfulness he displays without making a grand announcement about it. He starts to tune into your comfort, your safety, and your peace of mind. Even when he doesn't have the words to say he's falling, his protective behavior communicates it silently. You might notice it when he makes sure you get home safely after a night out. It's not just the casual, let me know when you're home, but the genuine follow-up, the check-in that makes sure you're okay. That's his heart reaching out in concern, showing you that your safety is on his mind, even when you're apart. Or maybe you notice it in the way he pays attention to your surroundings when you're together. He might walk on the outside of the street, open a door without thinking about it, or offer his jacket when the evening turns cold. These small gestures are often instinctive, but they carry an emotional weight because they come from a place of wanting to shield you from discomfort or harm. It is not only physical safety that reveals his protective side, but emotional protection as well. When a man desires you deeply, he becomes careful with your feelings. He doesn't dismiss your emotions or make light of your vulnerabilities. Instead, he listens more closely, he respects your boundaries, and he tries to create a space where you feel safe to be yourself. If he senses you're uncomfortable in a situation, he steps in, not to control it, but to make you feel more at ease. It might be something as simple as changing the topic in a group when he notices you're uneasy, or standing up for you if someone crosses a line. These actions reveal that your happiness and sense of security matter to him, even when he isn't saying the words outright. Protection also shows up in how he takes initiative when challenges arise. If something goes wrong, he doesn't disappear or let you carry the weight alone. Instead, he offers to help, sometimes quietly, sometimes more directly, but always with the underlying message that he wants to make things easier for you. He may not always have the perfect solution, but his willingness to step in shows that he cannot stand by and watch you struggle without offering support. This instinct to step forward, to lighten your load, reflects an emotional connection that goes beyond surface attraction. What makes these protective instincts so significant is that they are not about grand gestures of heroism. They are about consistency in care. Over time, you notice that he is tuned into you in ways that others might overlook. He remembers to check if you ate when you were too busy with work. He notices when you're stressed and offers comfort or distraction. He pays attention not just to what you say, but to what you don't say, reading between the lines and responding with thoughtfulness. This kind of protection isn't loud, but it is steady, and it speaks volumes about his emotional investment. When a man protects you in these subtle yet meaningful ways, it is his heart's way of revealing that you have become important to him. He may not say it directly, but through his actions, through the way he looks out for you, he shows that your well-being has become a priority in his life. That is when you know his emotions are leading him somewhere deeper, and his protective instincts are the quiet language of his desire. When a man begins to desire you emotionally, one of the most revealing signs is the way vulnerability starts to slip through his usual defenses. Many men are conditioned to appear strong, in control, and unaffected, often hiding emotions behind humor, distraction, or silence. But when he feels a genuine pull toward you, those walls begin to soften. It doesn't happen all at once, and it rarely comes with a dramatic announcement. Instead, it shows up in moments when he chooses to share something real, something raw, something he might not trust just anyone with. Vulnerability in this sense is not weakness, but a powerful indication that he feels safe enough with you to let his guard down. You might notice it in the way he starts telling you about his past. Maybe he opens up about a difficult childhood memory, a setback he faced, or a moment in his life that shaped the way he sees the world. These are not stories he shares with everyone. Because they carry weight, they reveal the layers beneath his surface. By giving you that piece of himself, he's showing that he values your presence and trusts you not to judge him. It may feel casual in the moment, but underneath, it is a sign that his emotional connection to you is deepening. Vulnerability also shows itself in the way he talks about his fears and insecurities. Most men are taught to hide doubt, to project confidence, and to never admit uncertainty. Yet when he is falling for you, you may notice that he lets you glimpse the parts of himself that aren't polished. He might share the pressure he feels at work, the worry of not being good enough, or the hesitation he has about the future. These confessions don't come easily because they expose the cracks he usually keeps hidden. When he lets you in on those moments, it means he is allowing you closer to his true self, not just the version he shows the world. Dreams and hopes are another window into vulnerability. A man who is emotionally invested will begin to speak about his future, not just in vague terms, but in ways that reveal what he really wants out of life. He might talk about goals he's afraid to chase, passions he wishes he had pursued, or the kind of life he envisions but doesn't often share with others. The fact that he shares these dreams with you is significant because it shows that he not only wants you to understand him more deeply, but also that he is testing how you fit into his vision of what's ahead. These are the kinds of conversations that hint at emotional desire because they carry the risk of being misunderstood, yet he chooses to have them with you anyway. Even small moments can reveal his vulnerability. The way his eyes soften when he talks about something meaningful, the hesitation in his voice before he admits a truth, or the nervous laughter that slips out when he reveals a personal detail. These subtleties are often overlooked, but they are important signs that he is letting you see the man behind the mask. He may not directly say, "I'm falling for you," but his willingness to show imperfections, to admit feelings, and to reveal unguarded moments is his unspoken way of expressing it. True vulnerability takes courage, and when a man starts to show it with you, it means he feels an emotional pull strong enough to outweigh the fear of being exposed. It's in those moments, when he chooses honesty over image, when he lets you see not just his strengths, but his struggles, that his quiet confession is revealed. His vulnerability becomes the language through which he shows that you matter, that you are someone he trusts with the most fragile parts of himself. When a man begins to desire you emotionally, one of the clearest signs is the way he invests in your world. It is no longer about just enjoying the time you spend together in isolation or keeping your connection contained to dates, texts, or private conversations. Instead, he starts to take interest in the people, the passions, and the experiences that shape who you are. This shift is meaningful because it shows that he doesn't only want a relationship that exists in a bubble. He wants to understand your life in a fuller sense, and by doing so, he reveals how deeply he is beginning to care. You may notice this in the way he remembers small details about your daily life. If you mention that you had a presentation at work, he checks in to ask how it went. If you told him about a friend going through a tough time, he later asks if that friend is doing better. These are not surface-level questions, but signs that he has been listening and that your world matters enough for him to hold on to the details. Remembering and revisiting the things that are important to you is his way of signaling that he is paying attention, and attention is one of the purest forms of emotional investment. Investing in your world also means he takes an interest in your relationships with others. He doesn't just want to hear about your family, he wants to meet them. He asks about your friends, not out of politeness, but because he genuinely wants to know the people who make up your support system. He might go out of his way to create good impressions, or even look for ways to integrate himself naturally into your circle. These steps are significant because they show that he doesn't want to exist as a separate part of your life, but as someone who fits into the larger picture. When a man is emotionally drawn to you, he knows that your world is part of who you are, and by investing in it, he is showing that he wants to be part of that identity as well. There is also an element of curiosity when a man invests emotionally. He becomes genuinely interested in what excites you, what frustrates frustrates you and what inspires you. If you have a passion, he doesn't just acknowledge it, he wants to understand it. Maybe he asks about the book you are reading, the music you love, or the projects you are working on. He may not share the same interests, but he supports them because he knows they matter to you. That willingness to step into your world, even when it isn't naturally his own, reflects an emotional connection that goes beyond convenience or personal preference. It shows effort, and effort is one of the strongest signs of someone falling. Another layer to this is the way he begins to make space for you in his own world while also making space for himself in yours. This exchange is subtle but telling. He doesn't only want you to know his friends or family, he wants to be part of the rhythm of your daily life as well. He includes you in small decisions, asks your opinion, and sometimes even rearranges his plans so that he can share experiences with you. These actions reveal that he is not content with you being a temporary presence. He wants to weave his life and yours together. The most telling part of this emotional investment is consistency. It is not about a single gesture or a grand moment, but about the repeated actions that show he is serious about being in your life in more than a casual way. When a man invests in your world, he shows that he values you as a whole person, not just the moments you share in private. That is when you see the difference between attraction and emotional desire, because true emotional desire doesn't isolate you from your world, it invites him to join it. When a man begins to desire you emotionally, one of the most powerful signs is the way his priorities start to shift. This doesn't happen suddenly or in dramatic fashion, but gradually you begin to notice that you occupy a different place in his life than you did before. At first, he might simply enjoy the time you spend together without much thought about how it fits into his larger schedule. But as his emotions deepen, you see him making deliberate choices that show you he is willing to adjust his life to include you. This shift in priorities is one of the strongest indicators that his feelings are no longer casual, because time and attention are two of the most valuable resources a person can give. When a man is falling for you, he makes space for you even when it is inconvenient. He may have a demanding career, busy commitments, or personal obligations, but he finds ways to carve out time to see you, talk to you, or simply check in with you. These gestures may seem small on the surface, but underneath they reveal a deeper truth. He is choosing to invest in you at the cost of something else, whether that be rest, leisure, or other priorities. That kind of sacrifice is not something people make lightly, and it becomes a quiet signal that his emotional pull toward you is becoming stronger than his need to keep things the way they were. It also shows up in the way he begins to include you in his plans, both immediate and future. At first, it might be as simple as inviting you to an event he would normally attend alone, but over time, the pattern grows. He talks about what he's doing next week or next month, and you notice that he uses we instead of I. He starts to imagine you in his future scenarios, whether it's a vacation, a family gathering, or something as small as trying out a new restaurant. This kind of inclusion is not accidental. It is his way of signaling that he doesn't see you as a temporary part of his life, but as someone who belongs in the story he is writing for himself. The shift in priorities can also be seen in how he balances his commitments. When he is emotionally invested, he doesn't keep you waiting endlessly or push you aside for everything else that demands his attention. He may not always be able to give you all of his time, but he communicates openly, he reschedules when necessary, and he makes sure you don't feel like an afterthought. The effort to keep you at the center of his attention, even when life is busy, is a clear sign of emotional desire. People will always prioritize what they truly care about, and when he begins to reorder his life around you, it is his way of showing that you are moving higher on his list of what matters most. There is also an emotional aspect to this shift that is easy to overlook. He doesn't just make time for you, he makes room for your needs and feelings in his decision making. He considers how his choices might affect you, and he adjusts accordingly. This might be reflected in the way he chooses to spend his weekends, the way he manages his schedule, schedule, or even the way he communicates throughout the day. It's not about him losing his independence, but about willingly choosing to create space for you in a way that shows genuine care. When a man allows his priorities to shift for you, it means he is no longer operating from a place of casual attraction. He is moving into a space where you are part of his larger vision, and his actions show it. He might never announce it outright, but the subtle rearrangements in his life are the clearest evidence of what is happening in his heart. It is through these quiet, consistent choices that his emotional desire becomes visible, showing you that he is falling in ways he may not yet have the courage to say aloud. When a man begins to desire you emotionally, one of the most telling signs comes through the silent signals of affection. These are the moments that don't rely on words, because words can sometimes be careful, calculated, or even withheld. Instead, they are the unspoken expressions of how he feels, revealed in the way he looks at you, the way he touches you, and the way he reacts simply by being in your presence. These subtle gestures often say more than any declaration could, because they are instinctive and genuine, born from emotions that can no longer be hidden. When he can't bring himself to put his feelings into words, his body and his energy will often speak for him. You may notice it in his eyes first. The gaze of a man who is emotionally drawn to you carries a depth that is hard to mistake. It lingers a little longer than casual eye contact. It softens when you are speaking, and it sometimes holds you in moments of silence where no explanation is needed. He might look at you when you're not aware, studying the way you move, the way you smile, or simply the way you exist in a room. That kind of gaze is different from attraction alone, because it carries admiration, tenderness, and the quiet awe of someone who is beginning to feel something profound. Touch is another silent signal that reveals his emotions. He may not be overly demonstrative, but you'll notice the subtle ways he reaches for connection. It could be the way his hand brushes against yours and lingers just a moment longer than necessary, the way he places his hand on your back as you walk through a crowd, or the way he absent-mindedly adjusts something near you as an excuse to be close. These small touches may seem insignificant, but they are his way of expressing what he feels without having to say it. Touch is one of the most instinctive forms of communication, and when a man desires you emotionally, he will find ways to bridge the physical space between you in ways that feel protective, comforting, and affectionate. You might also see it in the way he lights up around you. His body language shifts when you enter the room. His posture relaxes, his energy rises, and there is a subtle glow in his expression that wasn't there before. Even if he doesn't say much, his whole presence reveals the impact you have on him. He listens more intently, he laughs more easily, and he seems more present, because being with you naturally draws him into the moment. These are silent yet powerful indicators that you occupy a place in his emotions he may not be ready to verbalize. The small acts of attentiveness also belong to this category of silent affection. He notices when you're tired, when you're distracted, or when something is bothering you, often before you mention it. He responds with gestures instead of words, maybe offering you water, adjusting the environment, or simply staying close without pressuring you to speak. This kind of attentiveness is not born from obligation. It comes from emotional desire, because his heart is tuned to your state of being in a way that words can rarely capture. There are also moments when silence itself becomes the signal. Sitting together without speaking, sharing a glance across the room, or enjoying a comfortable pause can feel louder than any conversation. In those moments, you sense that he doesn't need to fill the space with words because his presence is already saying everything. These silent forms of connection are often the clearest indicators of what he feels, because they cannot be rehearsed or fabricated. They emerge naturally when emotions are real. When a man is falling but cannot say it, these silent signals are his confession. They are the way his emotions escape through the cracks, showing themselves in glances, gestures, and presence. Even without a single spoken word, his body language, his his energy and his quiet attentiveness reveal that his heart is leaning toward you. At the end of the day, when a man desires you emotionally, it isn't always about grand confessions or dramatic words. It's about consistency that makes you feel secure, protective instincts that show you he cares, vulnerability that lets you see his true self, investment in your world that proves he wants to belong, shifting priorities that place you at the center of his choices, and silent signals of affection that reveal what his heart cannot hide. Each of these moments might seem small on their own, but together they paint a clear picture of a man who is falling, even if he can't bring himself to say it out loud. The truth is, words can be delayed, but actions rarely lie. And when his actions begin to line up in these ways, you don't need the declaration to know his feelings. You can already feel them.